Get ready for your daily dose of marketing strategies and tactics from entrepreneurs with the guile and experience to help you find success in any marketing capacity. You're listening to Marketing School with your instructors, Neil Patel and Eric Su.
Welcome to another episode of Marketing School. I'm Eric Su.
And I'm Neil Patel.
And today we're going to talk about how to keep track of emerging trends in your industry. So one thing I've mentioned in the past is I really like looking at Feedly. So what I do with Feedly is it basically will take RSS feeds from my favorite blogs and I'll compile them into different categories. So I might say, okay, here's technology, it's going to be one category. Here's venture capital, it's going to be in another one. And I'm going to put marketing in another category. And that way in the morning, when I look at it, I can basically say, okay, I'm going to save these articles right here and I'm going to put them into Pocket, which is my read later tool. And I can read these articles later. So I like looking at the headlines in the morning. It gives me an idea of kind of what's going on. Let's say, for example, Pinterest talked about launching search ads. Well, if I didn't read that headline, I wouldn't at least be kind of aware of what's going on. So Feedly, it's free to use. And the great thing about it too is I can share my Feedly with my team so they can be aware of kind of what I like to read as well.
One thing I like doing is using Twitter. I know everyone says Twitter is dead, and sure, it's not that great in driving traffic to your site compared to what it was, but it's still great to get the latest and greatest news within your industry. If you follow everyone who's within your space, they normally will tweet about something crazy that's happening, and it's the quickest way to learn about something versus reading a blog, because I found that typically it's broken first on Twitter versus anywhere else. So make sure you're following people within your industry. It's really simple. You can even have Twitter on your phone so you can keep up with everything no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that one, I mean, for Twitter, I use a little app called Tweetbot on my iPhone. And the big thing with Twitter is it does take time to kind of set it up and figure out, because there's a lot of noise on Twitter. So how do you discern signal from noise? And it's the same thing. Like with Feedly, I curate what I read. With the same thing with Twitter too. I curate different categories of people that I follow. There's founders, there's venture capitalists, and then in the morning when I look at it, I can save stuff to Pocket as well. But what I really like about Twitter, when you look at the news like CNN.com or let's say you watch the local news, it's people talking about disaster all the time, right? But you don't, if something really big happens, let's say it's like a major earthquake or something like that, you're going to see it pop up in your Twitter feed based on, the people that you're following because it's a big event, right? Versus it's basically going to help you filter out a lot of the noise out there. And you're only going to, be able to narrow in on, the things that really matter ultimately. And if it's a really big world event, again, you'll see it. So that's Twitter. I also like, the fact that, if you're listening to this podcast right now, I listen to a ton of podcasts. That's where I get a lot of insight. That's where I hear a lot about different tools out there. That's where I hear about different conferences I should be attending. And it just leads to, a rabbit hole of whole rabbit hole of other opportunities that I otherwise would not have been able to discover on my own.
Yeah, and the good stuff, a lot of people don't talk about that stuff on podcasts, blogs. I hate to say that, right? But it is true. Like the crazy new tactics or the emerging trends that no one else wants anyone to know about, like the next big wave. And what I found is when you network with people, like as Eric mentioned, through conferences and in-person stuff, and then you start adding people to Skype and GChat and you can communicate with them on a regular basis, it's funny how many people discuss trends like, oh, dude, I just did this experiment in the marketing world. What are you seeing? Check out the results. Like, look at my Google Analytics. Even Eric and I do that with each other. Like, we'll share stuff that we're doing, and then we show each other the results. Like, right now I'm running a test where I removed the comments from one of my web pages that is ranking but not ranking high enough. Because the comments, like the page has over 800 comments and is messing up the keyword density. So like I'm showing him how I removed it. I told him I'm running this test before I even rolled it live. I told him when I rolled it live. And then I keep him up to date with the results. This is how we're spotting trends and new things and shifts and changes within our space. And we're doing this with other people within the space as well. But if you're not networking with people, you're not going to be ahead of them.
Yeah, 100%. And what Neil says is right. I mean, I remember speaking to Sean Ellis, who runs Growth Hackers, and he's like, I asked him, I think this is, 2 or 3 years ago when I started the Growth Everywhere podcast. I was like, why did you decide to start growthhackers.com? And he's like, well, I know most people aren't going to share like the latest and greatest tactics, but even getting, kind of the second wave of these tactics is good enough where most people are going to learn from it. So, that is validation where basically like if you actually get to meet with other people, you get to build relationships. Neil and I talk, quite often, and then there's other people I have on Skype as well, but you have to foster those. You have to go out there and build these relationships. You can't just sit at home all day, which is why I've talked about in the past where, let's say last week, for example, I went to traffic and conversion conference, but the biggest value that I got by far was the dinner that I set up where, we had a lot of people that just, they're all doing great things and people were able to connect, right? One of Neil's business partners connected with one of my friends and then, they're now like, fast buddies, really fast, right? And then they talk about all these different things that otherwise they wouldn't have shared with other people. And I actually remember, the other guy, his name's Ian. I spoke to him yesterday. He did a screen share with me to walk me through kind of his sales process. And I was like, can I record this? He's like, yeah, sure, record it, but don't share it with anybody else. And that's the thing, right? The best tactics are going to come and strategies are going to come from, these real relationships that you fostered with people trying to do great things.
So yeah, I have nothing else to add on my end. I think Eric and I nailed it when it comes to networking with people and getting your latest and greatest and the best trends from the people within the space. And make sure you reciprocate, because if you reciprocate, you'll keep, getting more information from other people as well. If you don't, people won't share anything with you over time. There's nothing really better than that.
And one final thing I'll add is, whatever industry that you're in, I really like looking at, these kinds of venture capital related, blogs where let's say it's CB Insights, for example, or Mattermark or Crunchbase, right? You can see who got funded, what they're building exactly. CB Insights does a lot of, research around kind of, let's say, ad tech, for example. It shows you a complete list of who's playing in ad tech, what they're doing exactly. So you can get an idea of what's going on. And, people are talking about artificial intelligence and things like that. You're probably thinking, how does this affect my industry? Looking at these kinds of blogs, subscribing to their newsletters, it's going to give you an idea of kind of where things are going in general. And then you can choose to dive deeper if you want to. But, at a very high level, it at least points you in the right direction. With that being said, that's it for today's episode. We will see you guys tomorrow.
This session of Marketing School has come to a close. Be sure to subscribe for more daily marketing strategies and tactics to help you find the success you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best daily content possible. We'll see you in class tomorrow, right here on Marketing School.